Our last speaker of the day is regarded a leading authority when it comes to competitiveness. He was the director of the World Economic Forum and Davos annual meetings for many, many years. He teaches at IMD and the University of Lausanne. He'll now share his insights on the economy for the next 12. Please welcome Stéphane Garelli.
Thank you, Lilian. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I have to say you are very lucky. You didn't have any Swiss music before my lecture. When you are the last one of such a wonderful conference, you can assume that everything intelligent has been said before you, and that you can concentrate on the rest, and the rest is going to be the kind of economic and business environment in which we are going to operate. Therefore, fasten your seatbelt, that's where we are. So we are in a world of volatility, there is no doubt, and low visibility. And since we have been speaking a lot about volatility, this is what... It will come. Volatility, what does it mean? You switch on your TV in the morning and you see first breaking news, share rise in early trading. Second breaking news, 10 o'clock, shares plunge on news that share rose in early trading. That is volatility. When the world economic is going into that direction, the question is it an outlook I am supposed to do with you tonight, or is it a lookout? So, what do we have to look out? Let's look at the number very briefly. You know them. Denmark, 0.4% GDP growth, 12 months of time. Europe, 1.6%. North America, 1.9%. Latin America, with Brazil as a tragedy, minus 5.9%. And Asia slowing down a little bit with China, plus 6.8%. And as you can see, Japan also. The numbers, more in details, you can see all of them in Europe. Actually, the one doing the best is the United Kingdom. Nobody knows why. Maybe it's because of the royal babies, you know, it gives a boost to the economy. And they should do that more often, but I know that's a problem. North America, as you can see the numbers, with Mexico doing so-so. Latin America with a lot of tragedy there, especially Venezuela. And if you are looking at the rest, which is basically India doing a little bit better, etc. So the first question when you are looking at those numbers is when you are looking ahead with low visibility, actually, who do you trust? Who do you trust in those numbers? And the first question is, do you trust statistics? And one of the classical examples was on Q1 2014, the United States of America, first GDP estimates, plus 0.1%. Then 2 weeks later, they came back and they say, well, actually, it might be minus 1%. And 2 weeks later, they say, now we have the final one, it's minus 2.9%. And this is the United States of America with the best statistical office in the world. I mean, this is crazy. If you are looking at the other countries, Nigeria 2 years ago revised the GDP and increased it by 84%. The United Kingdom a year and a half ago did the same thing. They revised the calculation and they included prostitution, gambling, and drug trafficking. The impact was 1.3% plus in the GDP, which means you are never too innovative. So, if you say, I don't trust the statistics, the other thing is, do you trust the stock exchange? And when you are looking at the stock exchange, actually, Robert Rubin, a former Secretary of the Treasury, said the following: the stock market has predicted 9 of the last 5 recessions. So, it means... Therefore, where do we go? We have been going through the Great Recession, and we had expected we would have a great recovery. Instead, we have had a great stagnation. And actually, many of my colleagues today are speaking about what they call the 8 years recession spell, which means that every year we have a recession, which would be, if we have that in 2016, an innovation, because it would be the first time we would have a recession without having a recovery in between. But if this is happening, the real issue is we have no ammunition left because we have been using every tool that we could use. And this is really an issue for the future, and really the key story on the longer term is what is the new normal, what is the new model. I think that until 2000, I'm going to change this machine, until 2018, please. Okay, until 2008, the name of the game, I'm sorry, I have to go back. The name of the game was that you had the growth interrupted from time to time by a recession. It's a little bit, if I have to illustrate that, like you are riding a bicycle full speed, you fall on the ground, you go back on the bicycle, and you run full speed again. After this time, after 2008, you take the same trend, but you reverse it. Soft growth interrupted from time to time by a period of expansion. If I have to illustrate this, it's a little bit like if you are riding a donkey. If you ride a donkey, it goes slowly, you don't know why. Then it starts running, you don't know why. Then it goes back going slowly, and you don't know why either. This is a world economy, totally unpredictable as a donkey. The key question, of course, is that oil has become a game changer. And it has become a game changer because the price is going down, and surprisingly enough, at the same time, the production has been going up because, of course, we have had the introduction of the US, we have the introduction of Iraq, and everybody producing much more. And actually, if you are looking at the stock, 290 days, this is not good news for the future of oil. And the pressure we have is a pressure really about geopolitics. When you are looking at the break-even price on production on oil, actually, if you are looking at the very top, this is how much a barrel should be in dollars in order for companies to be profitable, Nigeria and the rest. This is how much you would have if you are in Oman and Norway. You should have a barrel above $45. And this is when you are operating in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, with $12 a barrel, you are okay. The impact on the budget of a number of countries is going to be oh, sorry, I like this one. You go from oil sands to quicksands. But the impact on the budget is going to be huge. Look at Venezuela at the top. Venezuela needs a budget a barrel at $160 in order to balance the budget. Good luck. Russia, $110. So we are nowhere there. So my feeling, it's going to go up until around $60, but not much more, because there is too much oil on the market. And actually, you have a lot of people who have oil, and they don't want it. For example, you can look at the people who are saying there is a lot of oil. The biggest reserve of shale oil in Europe are in France, in the region of Paris. So you go in the region of Paris, and you tell our French friends, good news, you have oil. They say, fine. What do we do with Paris? We say, don't worry. In Paris, you already have the Eiffel Tower, which you can use as a drilling platform. So part of the infrastructure is already paid. You just have to find out what to do with the people, but that's a detail. Okay. Are the emerging economies still emerging? This is a big issue today. And obviously, why does it matter? It matters because if you take the BRICS and the Mint together, you have a GDP which is higher than the United States of America. If you look at the world population, the Mint and the BRICS is 50% of the world population. And of course, as the IMF has said very rightly, when the GDP growth in the emerging economy goes down by minus 1%, it has an impact of minus 0.2% in the advanced market. What we have seen recently is slower growth, currency collapsing, stock exchange collapsing. Obviously, it has an impact on all of our economies, and we have to deal with that and to deal with that. On the top of the world economy slowing down, world trade has been slowing down by minus 30% last year. This is enormous. If you are looking at the Baltic Dry Index, for those of you in Denmark, you are a lot in shipping also, you can know minus 39%. This is an indication that world trade is slowing down and that it has an impact on everybody. And it has an impact on the emerging market through the currencies. This is how currencies have been evolving recently. They have been going down compared to the dollars. You will not be surprised to see that Russia and Brazil have been hit more than anybody else. But for those countries, this is a very big issue for the future. So when you are looking at the emerging economy, two things are taking part. The first one, the private money is leaving those countries to go elsewhere. The estimate is $735 billion in 1 year. On the other hand, you have the public money, especially in the sovereign funds, is going back home, and a lot of hedge funds and banks are losing money because of that. So we see this crisscross of money around the world economy, which is very important, and therefore we have to find out where is the money today. Foreign currency reserves, this is where we are now. The United States of America, very small because the world is in dollars. Europe, my country, Switzerland, Japan. What is interesting is the new money. The new money is the money you will find in the emerging market. The largest one in foreign currency reserves, obviously, is China. And you are looking at Russia, Korea, Taiwan, India, Saudi Arabia, and Brazil. Now, the bigger news here, you have in total $5.7 trillion. The big news is that it is going down for the first time in 8 years. For the first time, if I would have spoken here 6 months ago, China would be at more than $4 trillion. On the top of that, you have the sovereign funds, which are very active. You know that the largest one is the one of Norway, $855 billion, changing the ownership of companies around the world. You just had before me Peter Brabeck, the chairman of Nestlé. The largest investment of the sovereign funds of Norway in a foreign company is Nestlé. The second largest one is Novartis, and the fifth one is Roche. So actually, you change the ownership of those companies, and Nestlé is much more Norwegian than people think. Okay. I'm saying that because I know he has left already. Government debt. Government debt is still there. And actually, if you are looking at government debt, we are always speaking about, the central government debt. Take the US as an example, $18.8 trillion, central. But you go one level down, and you go at the level, for example, of California, $777 billion. Sub-sovereign debt, you go at the level of cities, you are at $18 billion debts for Detroit, and most of the cities in the US have a problem. You are looking at Europe, you have the same situation. Rome almost closed down 2 years ago, no money. You are looking at Spain, Catalonia, Valencia, and Madrid swimming into debt. And Catalonia wants to become independent. That will help. In Germany, half of the German lenders are running a deficit, including Berlin. If you are looking in China, the Jiangsu province, 79 million people, a GDP larger than Turkey. The Jiangsu province should be part of the G20, and there are $3 trillion of debt. It is enormous, and I think sub-sovereign debt is becoming a real issue for the future. So you would say governments are going to save. No. Why? Because, as Yanis said, we are in negative rates. This is the negative yields on government bonds, 10 years negative on Switzerland and Japan. This is Germany, 7 years negative. This is Finland and the Netherlands. This is Belgium and Austria. This is, well, Denmark, congratulations, 4 years. Even Italy and Spain get 2 years of negative yields on government bonds. So why do you want to save money when actually people are paying to lend you money? This is a crazy situation, which will have some lasting effects. Like Benjamin Franklin said one day, remember, creditors have better memories than debtors. I think it's very true. And what happens? And again, before me, and he's saying, what happens when savings are not rewarded because you have negative yields? What happens on consumption? Surprisingly enough, people don't consume more. They save more to compensate what they are losing by saving. But this is the way we all do it. What about the pension system? On capitalization, how are we going to pay for the older people if by capitalization we are losing money all the time and people are getting older and they want more treatment? This is a very disquieting situation for the future. Next point, what went wrong with the recovery? What went wrong? Well, ladies and gentlemen, every one of us, we thought we are going to apply good Keynesian economics. What does Keynes say in period of economic crisis? He said, number one, you print money. Number two, with the money you have printed, you build something, especially a dime, if you can. With the dam, you start to pay people wages, and with the money they get, they go in a shop and they buy something. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Keynes theory in 30 seconds. Usually it takes me 1 year to teach it at the university, but you get the essential of it there. What have we done? We say, okay, we print money. With the money we have printed, we have bailed out the finance, we have bailed out the government, but the money actually went backwards. It went back to the financial system and to the government, and it didn't go to the shop. If it would have gone to the real economy, we would have had inflation, not deflation. And that's the best example that it doesn't reach the end of the economy. So we are in a system where we are cash rich and investment poor. The schizophrenia is that the monetary policy is expanding. We are printing money like confettis. And the budget policy is contracting. We are telling people we have no money. And this is schizophrenia on the market because people are telling us, do we have money or we don't have money? Tell us. And nobody can answer this question today. So, since we are very soon the Nobel Prize, we got this one. The Nobel Prize in economics goes to Mrs. Jones for keeping her savings at home. And you know, in my country, Switzerland, the biggest booming business is renting safe. People take cash, they put it in a safe, so they are sure that the banks will not charge negative interest rates on it. This is ridiculous. When we are reaching this situation, this is really bad. Next one, global companies are submerged with cash. What are we seeing? We are seeing the following. We have a mountain of liquidity everywhere. Cash and cash equivalent, the United States of America, during the first quarter, if you can look at the company, $1.7 trillion in cash, Europe 1.3, Japan 2.1. Everybody has money. If you are looking at the 50 top US companies listed, you have $1.1 trillion in cash on the balance sheet. The largest one in the world, obviously, is Apple, 216 billion. Microsoft and Google are next on the list. And this is an enormous system because, obviously, the first question you are going to ask yourself is, how do you use this cash? And the answer is, number one, you bring dividends. We have never seen so much dividends being given away. Number two, you're going to share buybacks to maintain your share price. A company like Cisco has done a lot of it. And number three, obviously, you go in M&A, in mergers and acquisition. We have never seen so many mergers and acquisition as we have seen until now. Ladies and gentlemen, however, keep in mind that M&A stands also for murder and assassination. Because this is what it's all about in many cases. Does the money go back in capital investment? No. The level of capital investment today is the same as 2008. And that is a problem. A lot of money not reaching the real economy. And then the next question is that obviously governments say, we have money here, we need it, how can we get our share of it? And that's why we have all these stories about more transparency, tax haven, tax inversion. And obviously this is correct because when the governments are looking, where is this money? They suddenly discovered that 93% of the money of Apple is abroad, that 90% of Microsoft is abroad, and 58%. How do you bring it back? There was a study, which was made by the US Senate, and they discovered that 54% of all the profits of American companies are in Bermuda, Ireland, Luxembourg, Netherlands, and Singapore, and a little bit in Switzerland, but very small. And the Obama administration says $2.1 trillion of profits abroad. How can we bring it back? This is a principle. The two principles which are going to be with us on taxation, number one, profits should be taxed where they are generated and not where the company is registered. You make money in Germany, you pay in Germany, and not in Ireland or in the Luxembourg. It's called territorial taxation. Second principle, very difficult to explain to the population. What is the difference between legal and legitimate? Tax rulings are legal, but for the vast majority of the population, they are not legitimate. So here we will have to find out how we better explain that, because the OECD estimates that tax optimization could bring back $240 billion in tax revenues to the various governments. So the government are looking for money. One day, William Gladstone, the English Prime Minister, was visiting the labs of Michael Faraday, the scientist. Question, Mr. Faraday, what is the use of all these inventions? Answer of Mr. Faraday, actually, I'm not quite sure, but I know that one day you will tax them. If you look at the imagination of politicians to invent new taxes, this is very, very true. Next question. Compliance is becoming a nightmare in this type of environment. You have in the Dodd-Frank Act a little part called the Volcker Rule, which is trading with your own money for a bank. The Volcker Rules, ladies and gentlemen, is 297,000 words long. How do you survive that? As a means of comparison, the New Testament is 181,000 words long. And it gives you a lot more hope. As James Madison, one of the founding fathers of the United States, said one day, it will be of little help to the people if the laws are so voluminous that they cannot be read, or so incoherent that they cannot be understood. And I think this is so true. That's exactly where we are today. Was summarized in a different way by President Harry Truman of the United States, who said one day, if you cannot convince them, then confuse them. I think it's a great political example. Next one. Meanwhile, consumers buy differently. In the world, in the next 12, what you are going to see, take, for example, your cellular phone. You start with a first buy economy. I need this phone. This is new. I need it. And then you go into what I call a replacement economy. I don't need it. I want it. Your next cellular phone, you do not need it, but you may want it. And then you have the next generation, our children, where this is a peer pressure economy. I don't want it, I don't need it, but I have to have it because my friends have one. And this economy is the one we are going to see everywhere, replacement economy. I got this idea, because this is where I live, in Rolle, on the Lake of Geneva in Switzerland. I'm not in the castle, huh? I'm just next door. And for tax reason, of course. And and then I discovered, this is the recycling dump, every weekend, our new cultural center, everybody goes and recycles things. And then suddenly I discovered a lot of the things coming in the recycling dump are not broken. They are simply unwanted. And we had, to the recycling, we had to add exchange process, because it's simply people have too much of things and they have to get rid of it, but it's not broken. And this has done a lot of impact, this replacement economy, on marketing and the mind of people. You may remember when the first iPad was produced, nobody wanted an iPad. Nobody needed one in his right mind. But then this man, Steve Jobs, came and he said the following: with the iPad, it will simplify all the tasks you never had to do before. And when you think about it, that's exactly what's happening. Huh? New global brands from all over the world. One of the biggest revolutions we are going to see is going to be this explosion of new brands coming from the emerging economies. We estimate we have about 1,000 firms today coming from the emerging economy with a turnover above $1 billion, and we're becoming truly global. Global with global brands, new names hitting the market that we didn't know many years ago. And I think this is the biggest revolution in the industry, but also in banking. We are in this world of innovation, but of newcomers all over the place. And we should never forget that these were the listed companies, but the big revolution is going to be family companies. If you are looking in the US and Europe, 19 to 25% of the company above $1 billion are family-owned. But if you are looking at the rest of the world, in Southeast Asia, 85% of them, in Middle East, 65% of them. I think that the family business is going to be an enormous engine for the future. In 2025, according to McKinsey, we will have about 15,000 companies around the world above $1 billion, and 37% of them are going to come from the emerging economies. Do we know them? Probably not. Do we know how to work with them? I think this is going to be really the issue. What we have seen is a world of many more low-cost producers coming in. The impact has been additional capacity because we have more companies than before. The impact has been overcapacity in China. And these two impacts have been feeding world price pressure. That's why the prices on the world goods is so low. On one hand, it has been feeding also deflation. On the other hand, consolidation is going to be the name for many industries around the world. You have to consolidate because there are so many players around. Globalization, in my opinion, will continue. I mean, I like this one. This is a little kid who is telling this mother, good news, I got top grades. And then I outsourced my homework to a kid overseas. And they are doing it. And everything impacts on employment. And I want to show you those numbers because they are important. These are the number of unemployment in the economy today. You know the number. They are traditional. Spain, 21%. And you see, oh, by the way, the latest one on at the bottom is Thailand, which most of people don't know that's where you have the lowest level. But the real issue is not there, although it's a real issue. An additional issue is there. It's going to be youth unemployment. Youth unemployment is going to be those kids between 16 and 24 years old not finding a job. And then you ask yourself, what is in Europe the best education system? According to the OECD, and the answer is most of the time Finland. And look at the numbers on Finland, 22% unemployed. What's going wrong? And what's going wrong is the following. It's a concept which is called over-education. Leaving secondary school, going to the university, 56% of the kids on average on the OECD. But if you are looking at Korea and Finland, 90% are leaving secondary school to go to university. What is the consequence of that? You don't find a carpenter, you don't find a plumber anymore, you don't find a baker, or if you find one, they have an MBA. So basically, we have over-education, and you find yourself in a situation where you go in the streets, and this is what you find. And this is a cartoon of 1902. And what it means is the following. University, I'm a professor at university, we are learning, or we are teaching a science. But apprenticeship, they are learning a job. And we need the two things, employability, and the two should have equal status in our society, which is not the case, unfortunately. This is Germany. Green is apprenticeship. Red is university. We want all our kids to go to the university, but they will find probably more of a job if they have an apprenticeship. I always tell my students at the university, you know, I teach them strategy at last Steve Jobs, strategy at last Zuckerberg. But I always tell them, when you will leave the university and you will go in a company, you will be very lucky if they let you touch the photocopying machine. Because you know the theory, but you don't know the job. And I think we have to keep that in mind. Otherwise, we are going to see those little kids going and see the mistress and saying, can I go home now before I get overeducated? Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude by saying two words about the mindset. I think we are going to succeed because we will have the right mindset. And the right mindset was very well said by Epictetus, where he said, in a period of volatility, actually, it's not what happens to you that matters. It is really how you react to it. And I think this is very correct and very true. We have to accept uncertainties, ladies and gentlemen. This man is Henri-Frédéric Amiel. Henri-Frédéric Amiel is a Swiss philosopher. We have one. Here he is. By the way, you know he's Swiss because he has a watch. Did you see the watch? He's Swiss. And he said the following, the one who insists on perfect clearness before he decides, never decides. And I think this is very true. There is a moment in life you have to jump and you have to do it. You have to accept that technology is going to change your lives, change the life you are going to lead in the company. This is a little guy who is being interviewed by the HR manager, and the HR manager is asking him, do you have any leadership experience? Answer, yes, I have 6 people following me on Twitter. Anybody today can be a leader. There's a time for innovation, but 95% of competitiveness is excellence in innovation, is in implementation. And the way you can experience that is that the next time you are going to take a plane to go abroad or to go back home and you are going to sit in the plane and spend 2 minutes thinking about me and tell yourself, in this plane, the last thing I want to have is an innovative pilot. A guy will say, hey, I have a new plane, let me show you what I can do with it. No. The impossible might be possible. Very important when you see this Chinese artist. The person who says that it cannot be done should not interrupt the person doing it. It's a good one, huh? A different mindset, Albert Einstein. And Einstein used to say the following, which I think is very true for all of us when we are going to confront the future. He said, logic will get you from A to B, but imagination will take you everywhere. And we need people with a lot of imagination in order to succeed in the future. So to recap, what are the recipe of success for the next 12? The first one is the management of efficiency. We need people who know how to manage in efficiency. Number 2, a solid ground of managing change. And number 3, managing complexity. The world is going to be complex. We should as well try to manage this complexity for people. And then you need a mindset of imagination. People who are like Robert Kennedy, who said 2 types of people in the world. Those who see the world as it is, and they always say why, and those who are dreaming of things that have never been, and they say why not. We need why not people. Why not doing it? Why not trying it? That is the name of the game. We need people with a sense of energy. Why not now? Let's do it today, not tomorrow. We need people with a sense of commitment. Why not me? The problem is that in many companies we have the people with an attitude. Why me? I didn't do anything. And then you need legitimacy. Why us? Why are we the best to do the job? Why are we legitimate in this company? And let me finally conclude, because I come from a small country, Switzerland. Many of you here are coming from small country, some nation, and in this vast world with plenty of big issues, the key question is, how can we make a difference? How can we really impact on everything? And then I want to leave you with an African proverb. And the African proverb is the following: if you think that you are too small to make a difference, and then they add, well, actually, you have not spent the night with a mosquito. Ladies and gentlemen, if a mosquito can do it, we should be able to do it. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much, Stéphane. Please have a seat. I never knew that economy could be that entertaining. I wish that you taught in business school when I was there. Then I probably wouldn't have dropped out and gone into journalism instead. Thank you very much. That was very inspiring and very educational. I'd like to start our conversation together with you looking at 3 pictures.
Yes.
And telling me what you think links the 3. We have the American illustrator Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
We have the American playwright Tennessee Williams.
Yes.
And then, of course, you, the pretty man on stage.
Yes.
Stéphane Garelli.
Yes.
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 What do you think links these 3 lovely gentlemen?
I am the younger of the 3.
Oh, you're very, very clever. Very, very clever. Well, let me enlighten you, because this is a bit difficult. You
Yes.
all have released work with cat in the title.
Oh, really?
The Cat in the Hat, of course, Dr. Seuss. Cat
Yeah.
on a Hot Tin Roof with Tennessee Williams. And you released a book on...
I have it in English. Are
Yes.
you a tiger, a cat, or a dinosaur?
Exactly. A book on competitiveness.
Yes.
And today your headline for your presentation is competitiveness. And I'm just thinking, what is competitiveness to you year 2016?
If you are a company, it's profitability and survival. If you are a country, it's prosperity. To what extent do you increase the prosperity of your people? And I think people should see the tangible proof of success. We have seen recently in Brazil that people were making demonstrations because they say we have billions of dollars to spend on the World Cup, on the Olympic Games, but our bus system is still not working. So why do we spend so much money and we don't see the tangible result of it? Lee Kuan Yew, the founding father of Singapore, used to say, every time we have a success in the government, the people should see the tangible result in better education, better infrastructure, better hospitals. This is number two. And as far as people, you and us, are concerned, competitiveness is uniqueness. What is our uniqueness? It's not how good you are. I always tell my students, never do something if it is just because you are good at it. I'm a good car driver. Well, maybe people object, but I assume I'm good at driving a car. I don't want to become a taxi driver. I want to do something where I'm unique. So competitiveness is finding in life your uniqueness. And every one of us, we have a uniqueness. We just have to find it.
You work with several large international companies, including Nestlé, Peter Bradwick, who was here earlier today. And he quotes saying that you have had a major impact on the way they think competitiveness at Nestlé. If you're a small company and can hire an expert like you, what would you say is the most important lesson right now if you want to stay competitive in this world you just shown us?
I mean, the first thing is that you have to accept that the world will continue to interfere with your strategy. I think this is one of the first things we have learned. Yeah, it's bad, huh? I know, I agree.
That's the reality, yes?
I mean, our life would be a lot easier if it would stop, but in any case, it interferes, and we have to accept that sometimes it will continue to interfere. Number two, a good idea at the wrong moment is still a bad idea. I mean, you may have a very good idea, but maybe it's the wrong time, the market is not ready, etc. And I think that we have to be able to really feel what's going around us and to feel the timing. Timing is everything today. And yeah, I mean, it was very nice to speak about Nestlé. I think what I have done, I told them what I thought would happen. They did exactly the contrary, and they were very successful.
When we had the pleasure of Yannis before, we spoke about the Eurozone and the state of the Eurozone. I'd just like to talk to you a bit about the markets that all of these people have to navigate when they do business. If we have this looming Brexit ahead, let's say they say bye-bye in Britain, what will happen to the Eurozone in your opinion?
If the BRICS are going down?
If they say bye-bye in Britain.
Yeah, the first thing is that when we speak about the BRICS, we are speaking about very different nations, the first thing. So people say we have the BRICS, but we don't have the Malta.
No, sorry, I mean the Brexit, that if Britain says bye-bye and they say we don't want to be part of the European Union anymore.
Ah, you mean those people, the Brexit?
Yes.
Oh, you don't have another question?
We can take the other one afterwards.
I mean the Brexit, okay, I'm going to say something about the Brexit. What is really interesting is that when our British friends always want to be special. In Switzerland also we want to be special, that's a different story. I think the biggest mistake we have done in Europe was to have an approach where we did not keep the European Free Trade Agreement, where you could have a kind of circle, wider circle, where people could be part of Europe, let's say on economics and trade, without being part of the political process. I think it's like in a wedding, it's still good to have an engagement before you go into the wedding. I think now we have a situation where you are in or out. I think we would need something in between so people could say, yes, I want to be part of Europe, but I don't want to be part of the process, which is a political one. I always fought with that, and for many years, it was really something people were against. They were saying in Europe, in Brussels, you join or you don't join. But actually, I think we can have something in between. By the way, Denmark has a special agreement with Europe. Norway has one. Switzerland has one. Maybe Britain will have one too.
You turned upon this in your point. You mentioned the IMF state that when the GDP dropped -1,
yes,
the emerging market, it has a -2 effect on everybody else.
Yes.
Right now we see a downshift in emerging markets. It's leaving Germany vulnerable. Germany has been the strong student of the Eurozone. So what consequences will a much weaker German economy have on the rest of us?
I think we have all interest that the German economy is booming because it has a pull effect on everybody else. I think that actually when you are looking at the Eurozone altogether, it has a positive balance of trade, which most people don't realize. It's still exporting more than it is importing. But I agree, Germany somewhere has to be first in class, no problem in Europe. But sometimes when you are the first in class, you have also responsibilities. But I think it's not just to say, you know, you are too good, you should be less good, that we are going to solve the problem. I think it's a wrong approach to tell people, you know, you should not be that wealthy. They are hardworking and everything. Now, I just want to say something after Yanis has been speaking. There is a very basic misunderstanding, which was very well underlined by Mario Monti. You remember, the former Italian Prime Minister? He said, you know, when you are speaking about austerity measures and about the economy in Germany, you should remember that the economy in the German mind is a part of moral philosophy. It means it has an emotional content which is part of moral. It's ethic. It's Weber's work. It's all those kind of people. It's not just, you know, something about some mechanism, monetary and the rest. It's much more profound. And Angela Merkel used to say, you know, you don't spend more than you earn. And she said, I don't understand why people don't understand it. That's it. But there is an ethical component in the economic system which is very strong in Germany. And sometimes the south of Europe do not understand that.
But do you share...
I don't know, is Yanis still there?
Yeah, is Yanis still here? Are you here, Yanis? But do you share his worry about the Eurozone?
Now, there is one thing which I fully share with him, is that the fact, you may remember I have said, we have tons of money, liquid money on one hand, and on the other hand, we have government in austerities, we are budget constrained. Where do we need the money? We need the money on infrastructure. He mentioned green technology. I think we should go further. We should have really infrastructure banks, because in Europe, our biggest problem, like in the US, by the way, is maintenance of infrastructure, developing new infrastructures. We have a lot, but we don't maintain it very well. And I think we need to take the enormous amount of money we have liquid and transform it through a bond process, as you mentioned, and to transform it into a way to finance infrastructure. There is no way we are going to be able to explain the population why we have plenty of money sitting in the bank. In my country, small country, we have $588 billion in the central bank, sitting there. And when I asked the president of the central bank, can we take a bit of it? He said, no, don't touch it. We may need it one day. Come on.
Well, now you actually touch upon this fact, because as you just described for us, we have this debt racing rapidly around the world. And governments are stalling because the money is so cheap they can buy their way out. But just this crazy situation, how long do you think this will last?
Well, I hope it's not going to be lasting too long. I think that whenever, as an economist now, whenever savings are not rewarded, you are ahead of a lot of trouble. Because you need to reward savings. When you have positive savings, you can go into investment. People feel much more free and relaxed about their future. They consume again. This is what I mentioned. Some people think that because we are in negative yields, people are going to consume more. This is absolutely wrong. We have also seen that the younger generation, you know, they said, you know, I have to save for my pension system. Well, a young guy who is 35 years old today and who is saving at 5%, you know, it's fine. And if the interest rate goes down to 2%, he has to save twice as much money in order to have the same amount of money when he will retire. So what he does, he saves more and he consumes less. And I think that this is killing the economy. Negative yields are killing the economy more than anything else.
You just showed us
By the way, I was very happy to hear that apparently it was Denmark which was the first one, because I always thought it was Switzerland. So now I'm very happy.
So we take the blame, yes.
And you are very welcome to take the lead on that one.
You just showed us that the level of investment in the real economy is flat, and big companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft has billions of dollars to spend, but they do not invest. And the same picture goes in Europe, but can we blame them with the situation you just showed us?
No, I think there are fields where you can invest, technology and the rest. There are plenty of other fields where you don't. also because the market has been very flat. And the market is flat because people are scared. Let's face it, they are scared about the future. They are scared about the instability, not only in the economy, but in the political world. And when you are scared, I mean, you try to be very careful with your money. The other thing is that I believe deeply we are in this replacement economy. I mean, most of the people in Europe, they have a TV set, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 phones, they have everything they need. And, you know, take your cellular phone, you can spend a full year without changing it and without experiencing a drop in your standard of living. And this has an impact on the economy, no doubt.
And it's a bit ironic that these super rich companies come from California, the state that's bankrupt, right?
Exactly.
But speaking about California and the United States and today's topic, Next 12, there's of course a very exciting election coming up in the United States.
Yes.
Today we've kind of used them, we heard quotes from them, and I used a few funny jokes with them as well. I'd just like to show you a clip with the one of the most colorful one of the two candidates.
Mm-hmm. You know, the truth is, I'm always ready. It's really going to be a big debate, but I'm always ready.
It's not just big, it's huge! Huge! Next question. How are you going to create jobs in this country?
I'm just going to do it.
I really recommend this is in full length, find it on YouTube. But you know, this is just a standard answer every time. I'm just going to do it, but how? By doing it. From your point of view as an economist and talking about you know, competitiveness, what do you think will happen if Trump gets elected for the White House? He's a businessman.
First, why is he successful? I think this is the first question. I think that one of these people, all of these people who have success like this kind of popular debate, it's because actually they appear to be authentic. They are authentical nuts, they are authentically idiot, but they are authentic. And this is what people are looking for. I think I found Hillary Clinton extremely good, very professional, very intellectual, very articulate, but every time she speaks, you have the feeling it has been rehearsed so many times, that she has been advised so many times, and you lose his spontaneity. I think Trump has success because he's very spontaneous, he says what he thinks he says, and it's really interesting to see that a bit everywhere, because we have those movements, not only in the US, but in Europe. And they seem to be successful because for the first time you have people who are speaking differently and they are addressing the concern of people. And I think this is what makes a very big difference. Now, of course, if Trump is elected, I mean, will be a big catastrophe for everybody, but including Mexico. But
They have to pay for that wall, don't they? Yes.
No, it's going to be a tragedy. I don't think he's going to be elected. I think what is going to, the most likely thing which is going to happen is a split in the Republican Party. Because when you see how he has been speaking recently about the National Committee of the Republican Party, I think he's preparing a split. And if there is a split, it's going to be really murder. But what I found interesting is that all this populist movement that we have in every country, in the US, but also in Europe, it's because people are speaking in a different way to the population. And they seem to be authentic. And I think this is important.
We're almost out of time. We could
Yes.
discuss this all night. But I'd like to leave the audience with a good advice from you. What is the best career advice you ever received that they might learn something from?
The best one I received was probably, don't do only things right, do also the right things. Because so many times in life we are doing things right, and we think that, well, if I do it right, it should be okay. But actually, I think Peter Drucker said one day, there is nothing more useless in life than to do well something that nobody needs. And I have learned that it's more important to do the right things than to do things right.
A big hand of applause.
Thank you.